On August 19th, 1940, more than a year before Pearl Harbor, Anthony Casamento enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. While the nation was at peace, war was in the air, both in Europe from Nazi Germany and in the Pacific from the Imperial Japanese Empire. Casamento would go on to perform an almost superhuman feat and to be rewarded for it as well, but he had to wait 38 years before that reward was finally bestowed upon him by the President of the United States himself. Hello and welcome to the Ultimate Sacrifice created by Bill Reisen. I'm your host, Senior Pastor of River Church here in Parker, Arizona. Thank you for tuning in. We are so glad you're here. Stick with us the whole way. This is an incredible story, so let's get into it. After Pearl Harbor, the United States scrambled to prepare our military for the fight, and it was no different in the Marine Corps. As the Corps rapidly expanded, men were shifted to and fro from one unit to the other, and in spite of all this barely contained chaos, the 1st Marine Division was shipped overseas in a hurry and ended up being slated as the core of our first major ground offensive against the Japanese. The details they had were sparse. Both Marines and the Navy weren't well trained or armed for that matter, but the division, along with the 1st and 2nd Raiders and a few other support groups, got ashore on Guadalcanal. They captured the nearby island of Tulagi and held that bridgehead on Guadalcanal itself. Then, because of Japanese air and naval superiority, the Navy pulled out before all the division's supplies could be landed. Alone, and low on everything, it fell to those Marines to prove the American fighting man's worth against the victorious Japanese. And they did just that, showing that they could not only stand up to them, but beat them time after time. Eventually, the U.S. forces began to push back against the Japanese, and that's where Anthony Casamento comes in. In November of 1942, an offensive operation was planned to get across and finally stay across the Matanicow River. Red Mike Edson's 1st Battalion, the 5th Marine Regiment, was slated to play a vital role in this attack. After the 1st Marine Raiders had successfully stood off the Japanese on Bloody Ridge, also known as Edson's Ridge, Edson had been rewarded by being taken from his beloved 1st Raider Battalion and transferred to the command of the 1st Battalion of the 5th Marines. And one of those Marines was Anthony Casamento. On the 1st of November, the 5th Marines, backed up by the newly arrived 2nd Marines, attacked across bridges engineers had laid over the Matanicow River during the previous night. Inland, Colonel Whaling led his scout snipers and the 3rd Battalion 7th Marines in a screening movement to protect the flank of the main attack. Opposition was fierce in the shore area where the 1st Battalion, 5th, drove towards Point Cruz, but inland, the 2nd Battalion and Whaling's group encountered only slight opposition. By nightfall, when the Marines dug in, it was clear that the only sizable enemy force was in the Point Cruz area. In the day's bitter fighting, Anthony Casamento was badly wounded as he manned his machine gun. He was serving as a leader of a machine gun section and held the rank of corporal. Casamento directed his unit to advance along the ridge near the Matanicow River where they engaged the enemy. He positioned his section to provide covering fire for the 2 flanking units and to provide direct support for the main force of his company, which was behind him. During the course of the engagement, all members of his section were either killed or severely wounded, and he himself suffered multiple grievous wounds. Nonetheless, Corporal Casamento continued to provide critical support fire for the attack and in defense of his position. Following the loss of all effective personnel, he set up, loaded, and manned his unit's machine gun, tenaciously holding the enemy forces at bay. Corporal Casamento single-handedly engaged and destroyed one machine gun emplacement to his front and took another under fire from the flank. Despite the heat and ferocity of the engagement, he continued to man his weapon and repeatedly repulsed multiple assaults by enemy forces, thereby protecting the flanks of the adjoining companies and holding his position until the arrival of the main attacking force. When the reinforcements finally arrived, Corporal Casamento was treated to a medical aid station, then shipped back to the United States and admitted to a naval hospital in Oakland, California. In 1964, it was learned that 2 eyewitnesses to Corporal Casamento's heroism were still alive, and that set in motion a chain of events that powered up the bureaucratic machine in the Pentagon. The living witnesses were interviewed and then re-interviewed. The after-action reports from the battle, as well as all of Casamento's medical records, were thoroughly gone over in every detail. All of this took time, of course, and the years slipped by as the massive machine ground its way forward, but finally, it resulted in his receiving the Medal of Honor in 1980. Here's some of what President Jimmy Carter said in the awards ceremony for Casamento, quote, "The deed, which Anthony Casamento performed, is the kind that makes legend. Because of men like him, the name of Guadalcanal has taken its place alongside the other great battles of history in the annals of military valor. On November 12, 1942, in the course of an American attack, Corporal Casamento led his section to a ridgetop position. Then, during a series of fierce Japanese counterattacks, Corporal Casamento held firm. He fought on until all his comrades had either been killed or were too seriously wounded to help. He fought on after he himself had been wounded again and again. Manning a machine gun, he held out until reinforcements could reach him. He lost consciousness. He had protected more than his own position. He had secured the vulnerable flanks of the companies below his ridge, and in so doing, he made possible the success of the American attack. Corporal Casamento went beyond the struggle of most fighting men to survive. He went beyond the call of duty. He heard the call of his country and the honor of his Marine Corps, and he fought on. By the time he was found unconscious by his fellow Marines, Corporal Casamento had been wounded 14 times. Since that day, for 38 years, he has carried the disability of those wounds as courageously and indomitably as he faced the enemy in 1942. This recognition of Anthony Casamento has been a long time coming, but heroism such as his is never diminished by the passing of time. He has the gratitude of a nation to which he will always be an example and an inspiration." Unquote. 7 years later, on July 18, 1987, Anthony Casamento died, and today his Medal of Honor rests at the West Islip Library, West Islip, New York. That's going to do it for another edition of The Ultimate Sacrifice. I hope that you were touched by this amazing story today of American braveness and heroism. Right over there is the QR code to my other podcast I want you to check out. It's called Tales from the Scrypt, where we take a lot of Bible story and a lot of history, and we put them together to see just how accurate the Bible really is, and you just might be surprised. So check it out. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't, subscribe. Take care, and I'll see you later.